Appreciate you guys being here.
So, Steven,
Yes.
Mayan is going to connect, but she said that link doesn't work.
Worked for you.
No, yeah, can you send maybe through email to her? Can you do that?
Sure. Why did she not reach out to me?
We're in the group actually.
Okay. I don't even know if I have her right. What's her phone number?
Let me check.
It's not coming up for me. Does she want an email? Can I text it to her or does she want an email? But
I don't know. She just said that the link doesn't work for her.
yeah. I don't have her. I don't have her
510
okay, hold on. Hold on. 510
239
239
8759.
59. All right. So I call this class Icky Bugs. Icky Bugs, because we're going to talk about the kinds of insects and creatures that eat wood and eat cellular debris, organic wood-based stuff. And the way we're going to do this, I'm just basically going to walk you guys through I'm going to walk you basically through how to read one of these reports and hopefully answer your questions. So can you guys all see my screen now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, please interrupt me with questions as we go along. I'm really glad that you're all here live, and so I'm going to answer your questions at the beginning, in the middle, and the end. So a pest report is different than a home inspection report. That's the first thing you need to know. It is not a study of the house's electrical, plumbing, heating, or any of that stuff. The entire purpose of a pest inspection report, sometimes it's called a structural inspection report, is to investigate damage to wood and wood in the home that has been caused by wood destroying insects and creatures. And those reports are done by companies that have a special license, which, by the way, is different than for a home inspection, where there's no licensing requirement at all. But a pest inspector must get a license with the state of California, and that gives them the right to spray chemicals to fix the problem. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go through a report I got some years ago, and this is for a single family home in Oakland. And this is from a company that does these types of reports a lot. And the good thing about these types of reports, pest inspection reports or structural pest inspection reports, is that they follow a standard format. Once you've seen one, the others are going to be very similar in the way they're structured. So this one has a cover page, which is all fine and good, but most of them start with what you see now. So let me just, first of all, get my screen bigger. There you go. So the first page will identify the property address at the top and the date of the inspection. Now, if you are representing a buyer, you want to look at any report the seller gives you and verify that the date of inspection is within the last month or two. If the inspection is older than a month or two, it is already out of date because more damage associated with moisture or insects may have happened since then. So if the report from the seller is older, you might want to do your own report or have your buyer do their own report. And if you're a seller, you don't want to do this report too early before you go on the market so that it stays relevant and current. So there's information about who ordered it, and it tells you what kind of report it is: complete, limited, supplemental, and reinspection. We're looking for complete reports. And then it tells you 5 categories of things they found. subterranean termites, drywood termites, fungus and dry rot, other findings and further inspections. Subterranean termites live in the soil and come out of the soil and lay tracks and eat the wood that is in the soil and above it. Drywood termites live in the wood. Drywood termites are more serious to remediate. They usually require tenting the house. But for subterranean termites, they typically just spray. Fungus and dry rot is evidence of wood damage, but not necessarily termites. It just could be fungus or teensy tiny insects that eat wood. Okay. Other findings are observations the inspector made that are not directly related to current wood damage. And we'll go through that. All of these reports have a map. The map is from looking down at it right now. The front of the house is always at the bottom. And for many of these reports nowadays, you can simply click on the number and it'll take you to that part of the report. So if I click, say, on 1A, it'll jump down to 1A in the descriptive text. So that's very convenient. The inspector who has a license number signs the report on that first page. Any questions so far? Okay. So the next thing you're going to get in these reports is a disclaimer. We don't inspect this. We don't inspect that. And for example, if there's furniture, they won't move furniture. They certainly won't break into the walls to see what's going on behind the walls. It's going to be based on observable conditions. They do not comment on mold or the presence of mold or anything like that. There's no air quality testing or anything like that. And they warn you that they may not be able to see the extent of damage. They warn that in several places, including on this page. This particular report says the exterior of the roof was not inspected. So you should always just make sure you've read them. They're pretty standard, though. So the first thing you're going to see on the report are Section 1 items. So all of these reports have Section 1, Section 2, and then further findings. And Section 1 means that the wood is currently damaged by moisture or bugs, and the wood needs to be repaired. Section 1 is what we see in our real estate a lot, and is considered the more serious of the two, Section 1 and Section 2, because it is an active bug infestation or active wood damage. We'll talk about Section 2 in a little bit, but in these active, on this particular report, your job is to read this so that you and your client can talk about it. So this report is saying 1A, the barge rafter as indicated on the diagram are damaged by fungus. The contributing moisture source appears to be exposure to the weather. So first of all, what the heck is 1A? We click on it. It takes us back up to our diagram. And we can see 1A over here, 1A over here, 1A over here, and over here too. 1, 2, 3, 4 1As that I can spot right away. These are evidence of damage to the barger, the rafter barges. So what the heck is a rafter barge? Well, they've got a photo. So photo 1 at the top left corner is showing us what's going on here. These things are rafter barges. And look at how black it is there. And over here, and the gap. Pretty bad, right? Pretty icky. Anyway, that needs to be fixed. Because when he takes these pest inspectors, they have this rod, this narrow rod that's made of iron. And they poke the wood gently, but they poke it. Wood like this in the corner where it's black, their little black rod will go right through because it's soft and damaged. It isn't supporting anything anymore. All right, so 1A is the rafter barges. Okay, now, by the way, for these, some reports put the estimated price right in each item. This report does it as a page at the end. Now, one of the things to think about, guys, is that unlike a home inspection report, a pest inspector will always provide a bid price. They're required to. So you're going to be able to click on estimated cost and it jumps down. And they are quoting in this report $2,375 to repair all the occurrences of damage to the barge rafters. Does that make sense? Now, they're not talking about doing any spraying. One of the things to remember about with pest inspection companies is they will repair all kinds of wood problems, but they're only legally, let me put this another way. They are the only ones who are legally allowed to remediate and spray for bugs. But they will bid on all kinds of wood damage repair, even if it's a matter of just replacing a wooden board. So for non-termite or non-animal spraying, bug spraying or remediation with tenting, you can use a general contractor or even a handyman in some cases. You don't need to hire these guys. And as long as we're talking about this, pest inspection reports tend to be about 30% more expensive than you could get the work done by an independent contractor. Generally, not always, but generally speaking. Now, there are advantages for your sellers to have the work done or your buyers to have the work done by the company that did the pest inspection, but very often it isn't necessary and it's going to be more expensive. So they give their finding about the damage. They show you a picture. They tell you their price. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to remove and replace a section of the damaged barge rafter to correct the condition. Bid includes repairing of the roof covering if it's disturbed by their repairs. If gutters need to be removed to perform the repairs, then the bid also includes reinstallation of the original gutters. If it becomes necessary or desirable to install new gutters, this will be done only if authorized and at an additional cost. Want new gutters? This particular pest inspection company will put them on for your client. Section 1 items are always isolated, and so they tell you at the top here, and then they put it after the item. Any questions so far about that? Okay. 1B, the fascia has been damaged by fungus where indicated on the diagram. The contributing moisture source appears to have been caused by a failure of the roof covering and or exposure to the weather. See photo 2. So we go to photo 2, and what they're talking about here are not these, but they're talking about this. See how all black that is? Okay. So now we wonder what the heck are they, how much are they going to charge us to fix that? So we go to estimated cost. Number 1B, 1,400 more. See, 1B. Okay. And so we're going to do this for there's a different price quote for all the items that are identified as section 1. So in 1C, the roof sheathing has been damaged by fungus. In 1D, the trim has been damaged by fungus, as indicated on the diagram. The contributing moisture source appears to be exposed to weather. So in that case, we're talking about, see photo number 4. This is a window. This is a window that they're remarking on being damaged. Not a particularly telling picture, but that's what the picture is. These pictures have been really helpful. They never used to have them. So you can get, but sometimes they're so focused and so close in that you don't really know what they're talking about. But you can go to the property and look. The window jamb, 1E, the window jambs have been damaged by fungus. 1F, the wooden window sash at the side, as indicated in the diagram, has been damaged by fungus. If you want to replace the entire sash, contract an appropriate professional. They're only going to do the part that is damaged. The basement door and framing have been damaged at the rear, the contributing moisture source, and then they have 3 photos for this. So photo 7, 8, and 9 are the basement door. So you can see how damaged the door is here, and here, and here, the actual door. So a lot of problems with that door. probably better just to replace the door. I'm pretty sure that's what they recommend, not try to fix it. Let's see. They're saying the basement door, contract the appropriate trades to remove and replace all the damaged wood. If damage is found to extend into any enclosed area, a supplemental report and bid will be issued. So they're not even going to do this. They're recommending you hire someone else. 1H, the door sill and jamb at the rear was found to be fungus damaged. And so there's all these fungus damages all over the house. Now, 1J, this is where we are talking about subterranean termites. So they found termites. Now, you never want to find termites because even though you can remediate them and everything, if you're a listing agent and you find termites, you almost want to always remediate them if the seller can afford to do it because it's icky. I mean, imagine you're going to a house and they're telling you there's still termites underneath the house. Wouldn't it be better if you cleared the termite damage, cleared it so you could say there are no problems with termites here, right? Anyway, if we go to photo 16, 17, and 18, we will see 16, 17, and 18. This is purporting to show you termite tubes. I think 15 is a better example. This line here is a termite tube. You can ask the inspector more questions about this, but this is clearly a problem. This is underneath the house. So termites are absolutely can only be remediated by the company, by a licensed pest company. It doesn't need to be this one, but they're the only ones that can do it. So their recommendation here, remove a sufficient amount of exterior stucco to do the job, remove and dispose of the damaged siding, the floor joists, the rim joists, and the framing, install new materials, install new paper and wire, re-stucco the exterior. The new texture will vary from the existing texture. One coat of primer paint will be applied. If the damage is found to extend into any enclosed areas, a supplemental report and bid will be issued. Because again, they can only report on what they see. Well, what are they saying about this? 1J, 2780. Oh my goodness. It's beginning to add up, right? Let's go back. What else do we got on this section 1? Section 1. Okay, 1K. Water has gotten under the floor covering adjacent to the bathtub in the front hall bathroom. Oh my goodness. This has caused fungus and moisture damage to the subfloor extending under the bathroom tub. So now they want to remove the walls around the bathtub, remove the tub, replace all the damaged wood, reinstall the tub, install an approved surface on the walls, new ceramic tile on the walls. They won't do any painting or wallpapering. If damage is found to extend into inaccessible areas, they'll do a new report. If we click estimated cost, do you guys think this number will be higher or lower?
Of course, higher.
$10,539. Absolutely. Anytime you start talking about moving appliances or fixtures, it's usually going to be more expensive. So at the end of the day, when we add up all the section 1, actually, I want to go through 1L and 1K just very quickly. 1L. 1L is kitchen subfloor, surface damage on the kitchen subfloor. And then 1M is more termites that they refer to on 1M. And so those are the section 1 items. And if we go to the bottom, we can see that the total for section 1 is $22,000. Now, one of the things you want to think about with a pest report is how much is the section 1 relative to typical homes? Anything over about $5,000 is, sorry, anything between about $3,000 and 10, but a 4-figure number is normal, and we see it all the time. When you start seeing numbers over $10,000, we are talking about some neglect. We are talking about a home that has had some deferred maintenance. Very often, not in this one, you will see a problem with porches, front porches and rear porches, and that eats up all of the money in the quote. And you get listing agents who say, the section one was $25,000, but 15,000 of it was the front porch. And, the front porch is the only problem here. The rest of it is pretty minor. You get comments like that. So, relatively speaking, this is a house where the pest report might factor into buyers' considerations because this is a big number. Again, you might be able to do all but the termite work with a third-party contractor, but it's still going to be, you're looking at probably $15,000, right? Now, section 2, what is the section? And by the way, they only quoted the stuff they do, 1F and 1G. So 1F, they're saying the owner should do that, and 1G, the other trade, other TRD is other trade. So 1G, I believe, was the door. Yeah, the basement door and framing. And 1F was the wooden window sash. Sorry, guys. Is the window sash. And both of them recommend contacting trades. Okay. All right. So that's section 1. And this is the number that us realtors always look at, is how much is a section 1. But I urge you, when you're reviewing these reports, to not ignore section 2. Section 2 items on a pest report are not like insignificant. They are notations by the inspector where they're saying that we have a problem here, and if you don't deal with it, you're going to have more section 1. These are issues of where there's no wood damage right now, but you might want to take a look at this. So what is the first thing they say? Minor stress cracks were noted in the exterior stucco as indicated on the diagram. They're recommending that all those cracks be sealed, especially the ones wider than 1/16 of an inch, with a paintable sealant. And did they provide a quote? No, they don't. They say owner to fix, 2A, owner to fix. Okay. 2B, cracked tiles were noted in the rear hall bathroom. Replace the cracked tiles. Why? Why would this be in a pest report? Isn't that just aesthetic? No. Cracked tiles in a bathroom means water can leak through and damage the wood underneath on the floor or in the base. 2C, there is cellulose debris in earth contact in the substructure area. Okay, so you see this on almost every report. What the heck are we talking about, cellulose debris? This is junk underneath the house that was put there by the owner and never moved. Could be wood boards, could be cardboard stuff, could be metallic stuff. If it's metallic, it wouldn't be cellulose. It is an organic material and it's underneath the house, and that's a problem because such a thing will attract termites. Is there current wood damage to the structure? No. Should you clear cellulose debris underneath the house? Yes. Now, if the house has a nice big tall crawl area and good access, then this could be relatively inexpensive to fix. But if it's got a very narrow, shallow one, then it can be very expensive. They're quoting $248 for 2C. Is that the right one? Did I go to the right one? 2C. 2C. Yeah, they're saying $250 will remove your debris, but you might be able to get a handyman to do it for way less than that, right? 2D, there are form boards in earth contact with the substructure area. This is another example of the same problem, but it's not cellulose debris, it's form boards. And so they're saying remove as much as possible, and then they want to treat the rest of it with a chemical. So their bid for retreating the rest of it, $650. They'll do it for you. If you can't review, they don't think you can remove it all. If they felt you could remove it all, they would have recommended removing it all. But they think it needs to be treated, that it's not removable. We don't have a picture for this. So this is the kind of thing I might call the inspector. Hey, what the heck are we talking about here? You didn't take a picture. 2E, there's a plumbing leak at the front hall bathroom toilet drain. Why is this not section 1? Because there's no wood damage, it's just water right now. Let's deal with it or we're going to have a problem. 2F, exterior siding at the side of the house is missing. That's pretty important. If we don't put the siding on the side of the house, the water of the rains gets in behind, right? 2G, vegetation in contact with the structure. This is another very common comment, because even though the vegetation is not wood damage, termites can climb and other wood destroying insects can climb the vegetation. So you never want vegetation going higher than the concrete of the foundation wall on the exterior. There's nothing wrong with hedges at the side of your property as long as they don't go up to the side of the house. They only go to the top of the foundation. And there are other things you can do to remediate it. You can put up barriers between the side of the house and the vegetation and other things. Does that all make sense? Okay. One thing you never ever want to see as a buyer agent or as a listing agent on these reports is further inspection items. Now, it may reflect lack of good preparation on the part of the listing agent, but it could also reflect another problem. So in this particular one, we have a further inspection item. They're saying, we were unable to inspect a portion of the interior of the basement due to stored personal property. Yikes. Look at photo 12. So this is awful. A good listing agent would make sure this doesn't happen. They would talk to the buyer, the seller, before the pest inspection company comes out and tell them, you've got to take everything out of underneath the house and everything out of the attic so the inspector can see all of the sides of the wall behind it. Otherwise, it's going to show up as a further inspection item, and we don't want that. So they're not going to provide a quote for that. They will simply say owner, right? 3, owner. But here's the problem. Why do we even care about this? And the reason we care is because it creates a question mark for a potential buyer. What is going on behind there? Maybe they're hiding something. So you as a listing agent want to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, that you get this report out and you don't have any surprises. And as a buyer's agent, when you see further inspection items, you want to make sure you talk about it with your buyer. Your buyer may not care, but that's their call. And there's reason, and they understand the risk they're taking. How big is the area that's not inspectable? Is there a potential for a structural issue that we will not be able to see? Because the last thing you want is for your client to buy the house and then be working underneath the house and take away all that stuff and see a huge crack in the foundation wall. So do you guys get it? You see the problem, right? It's really a challenge, right? So further inspection items. So there's all these notes and caveats that come next. Then they tell you about they're doing all this legal stuff they have to do. Then we have the pictures after that detail. And then we've got the pricing. And then there's an agreement. Here's what we're going to do, Mr. Buyer or owner, rather. Here's what we're going to do. Sign this to agree to have us do it. And then they sign this price page and the work can be done. And when a pest company and here's how much it costs, $495. They're more expensive now, but that's how much they were charged at that time for this report. Now, when a pest inspection company does this work and they are hired to do repairs based on it, they issue something called a clearance report. Let me see if I can find a clearance report to show you quickly. A clearance report is the pest company legally saying, we fixed the problem. And this can be very important for certain types of sales to have a clearance report. For example, if your buyer on this deal, whether you represent seller or buyer, if the buyer is using a VA loan, the VA will require a clearance report. We call it a clearance report. Let me see if I can find one for us. Here's one. This is an old one. Let's have a look at this. I didn't let me just see this one. I've got all this stuff on my screen, so I'm just clearing some stuff on my screen. So standard notice of work completed and not completed. So they go back to the original report, they reference it. Recommendations completed by this firm. And they issue the three things. In this one, there were three. Here's how much it costs to do the work. Then there's another section. Here is the work we didn't fix. Okay, because they don't always fix everything in section 1 or section 2. And then they always say, we do not provide any warranty about work that has been done by other people. That's the remarks. So this is very helpful if you have a VA buyer and they will need a clearance report for any section 1 that is identified in the transaction. So these clearance reports can be very useful. Now, let's suppose you're listing the property for sale and you get a pest report like this is showing $22,000 and you have a conversation with your seller and you and the seller agree that the best thing to do is to clear everything up so you can go to market with a clear pest report. Then that report would go in your disclosure package along with the original report. So buyers will see, oh, here we go. I can match it all up. The work was done. So it can become a marketing tool. Yes, go
If
ahead.
work's been done, for example, sometimes it's not treated immediately. Sometimes it takes time to treat, right? It's not
They
like,
won't issue the clearance report until it's treated.
so
You
it's
can't get
treated
that
and
report
then
until
they
it's
will issue.
done.
Mhm.
That clearance report I just referred to, they won't issue it before the work is done.
Okay. And you said, the report is like for a period of time, yeah, for a month or two.
Well,
First.
it depends. I mean, if I'm representing the seller and I go to market within a month or two of issuing the pest report, I'm pretty confident that buyers won't have a lot of questions, especially if it's the dry season, right?
Mm,
Because buyers agents are always telling their buyers to get their own reports anyway.
mhm,
But I will feel more confident as a seller knowing that my report is recent enough that it's probably mostly the same circumstances. But let's suppose it's rainy season and 4 months go by. You could have termites come in between time. You could have wood get damaged by moisture in the between time. So the longer the between time gets, the less valuable the report is. That's true for a home inspection report too. Homes are organic in a way. A home has a whole life of its own, and it has stuff that gets weakens and fails, even with no occupancy. Just the weather will impact all the systems of the home. So the home is kind of alive in a weird way, right? So if I'm representing a seller, I don't want too much time to go by before I go on the market with especially if I'm not doing clearance, right? And if I'm a buyer, then I want to check the date in the disclosure package, make sure it's not too old. And if it is too old, I go to my buyer and say, look, they gave us a pest report, but it's from 6 months ago. I strongly encourage you to consider having a pest report done of your own. Now that raises another question. What about the companies? What are the good ones and what are the bad ones? Now, what I can tell you is I happen to know companies that I know and trust who've done good work for me and my clients in the past in the East Bay. But I know some people on this call are on the peninsula, and we don't see a lot of crossover. And there are also some companies, San Jose, that go up to the Fremont area, but don't go any further north. And so when you are considering the quality of the pest inspection company, if you are a listing agent, talk to your mentor, or feel free to talk to me if it's East Bay. And they can recommend 2 or 3 companies that they've had good experiences with for you to recommend to your seller to get the report done. If you are a buyer's agent and you're looking at a disclosure package and you're wondering, is this company, what's their reputation? Ask your mentor. And your mentor will tell you, I've never heard of them, or they have a good reputation, or they have a terrible reputation. Right? It's all over the map. It's just like anything else. When you are representing a seller, just like I say with home inspection reports, in our area, there is an expectation that a seller preparing a property for market will get current physical inspection reports, including one of these pest reports. However, sellers sometimes say, why should I buy this report? The buyer should buy their own report. The reason why we encourage sellers to prepay home and pest inspection reports is because we want to we want to make our deals resistant to cancellation. Okay, so let's suppose you have a soft market like we're moving into in some places where buyers get to choose the property they want to write an offer on. And they write an offer, there's two properties they like, very similar, and one has a very good disclosure package with well done physical inspection reports and good detail on the house and the owner's history living there, preliminary title report, disclosure package, the whole thing, natural hazard disclosure. And the other one has just the TDS, SPQ and TDS, doesn't have any of this extra stuff. The buyer, let's suppose they choose to write on the house that has all the reports. The seller of that house has a degree of confidence that it's unlikely. Let's suppose both buyers have an investigation contingency. In my class this morning, we were talking about a contingency. So if you have this a contingency, you can cancel, right? You can say, I don't like what I've found about the house, I can cancel. So in both of these cases, the case where there's a detailed disclosure package, including good reports, and in the case where there isn't one, in both cases, the buyer has 10-day investigation right. Well, the house that has the full disclosure package has some Teflon, has some resistance, has some armor, if you will, against the buyer canceling on their investigation contingency. Because they know before they write the offer, they know the circumstances of the house. They're less likely with their own inspectors, it's not impossible, but they're less likely with their own inspectors to find a problem. That's the resistance, that's the armor, the Teflon. However, the other example I gave you where all they have is the TDS and SPQ and they don't have anything else, that seller is very vulnerable to the buyer saying, I did my own home inspection and the furnace is near the end of its life. And the pest report we did, here it is, it's $10,000. So we want you to reduce the price or do the work. So in the East Bay and the South Bay and the Peninsula, it has become very popular for us to have sellers do these reports up front.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, I have two. One is I just did the home inspection, pest inspection, and roof inspection. And actually, they have something that they need to repair. And actually, my seller has already, done almost everything and make it clear. Do I have to ask them all of them come out to do the reinspection? Or I can just write it down, it's fixed by contractor.
Who are you representing, buyer or seller?
Seller.
Seller has an obligation to put in the reports that the inspectors did, or in their reporting about the property, say the work that they did themselves or that they had done and provide invoices. They have an obligation to do that. You want to do that. You want to disclose everything. The seller wants to disclose everything they know about the previous repairs on the property. Even if everything's perfect now, they still need to disclose everything they did.
Okay.
So disclose is the general rule.
So actually, you can put it onto the original inspection report and say, hey, fixed by licensed contractor on which date, right?
Yes, you absolutely can do it on the original report. You can also do it as an as a separate line document, or you can even do it on the SPQ or TDS documents.
Okay.
So for those of you, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
All I was going to say is for some of you who are super new, you may not know what an SPQ or TDS is. Please watch the disclosures class that's on the agent portal. It goes through what those documents are in great detail. All sellers are required to make certain disclosures about the condition of the property they're selling. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay.
Macy, what was your other question?
Yeah, my another question is, so if that is the case for the home inspection or the because there's a lot of things need to be fixed. So actually, shall I call the inspector to come out to re-inspect again, or I just put it online? Because like past report, my seller has already taken care of it with the licensed contractor. So actually, do I have to call them all out, to do the re-inspection, or what is it?
So that's a great question. I want you to ask your mentor.
Okay.
My personal feeling is that I don't normally do that because that incurs a new cost for my seller. So
Yeah.
I simply have them write a document saying, here's what I fixed, and let the buyers verify that it was fixed at the buyer's expense. However, if the work was extensive and so much was done that it's pages and pages, then I might encourage my seller to have a reinspection by the appropriate professional to issue an updated report that you then put both reports in the disclosure package before and after. But it's very situational, and the scope of the work is really important. So talk to your mentor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because for the inspection, for the home inspection, there's a lot.
Yeah. So let's focus on I hear you completely. Are there any other questions about the pest report itself and the pest inspection that we've been going over today? Do you guys think that now you would be able to go through it with a buyer or a seller and walk them through it and understand it?
Yeah. I have a question. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for your nice description about this report. So, in case some buyers they actually want to do the inspection by themselves, also second opinion, do you recommend that, or what
Always,
should the buyer agent?
always recommend to buyers that they do their own inspections.
Okay.
Especially if the physical inspection is by somebody that you've never heard of and your mentor has never heard of, and nobody in the sales office in your office has ever heard of them. I have seen so many poor quality inspections over the years, not usually from reputable firms, but from firms that I've never heard of. And so I've had it happen. This had it happen recently for a buyer of mine. So, so yes, I always tell my buyers, I don't care how great the package is. If we have an investigation contingency and you have a right of inspection, let's get it. Let's get your own. Let's use the guys that I know and trust, or that you've worked with before that you know and trust. Will be more thorough. That's a great question.
Yeah, another question actually, because sometimes I have seen, I mean, when I was searching home for myself, the one inspector is too aggressive in a sense that too strict, and the seller agent want to replace the report with a new one which is less details.
Yeah, you can't, that's just totally going to be a bad thing to do. Okay.
Okay.
If your seller wants to get a second opinion, he puts both reports in the disclosure package. Remind your sellers, disclose, disclose, disclose. They can't go about thinking with this mentality, I'm going to hide it. If they have that mentality, they're going to get sued. This is
Mhm.
California.
Yeah.
Disclose, disclose, disclose. And even if they don't like the report, they could issue a rebuttal. They could go and get another report from somebody else saying,
Mhm.
this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem, this isn't a problem. They could do that, but they've got to
Got
do all the full reporting, and you don't want to be a party to any deception ever.
Mhm.
If you know that there's a legacy report, if you know your seller has old reports from when they bought the property, those have to go in the disclosure package too. If you know they exist, you have to make fair, reasonable attempts to obtain them and put them in the disclosure package.
Okay. Yes, very good. I have one more question actually.
Please,
As we are
please, you've
talking
got
about pest,
15 minutes. Yes, go ahead.
for example, deck. Someone has a deck on the back of the house, and they maybe replaced it. Let's say within the last 1 year or 2 years, they put a new deck. Do you also look for the permit? That does they have a permit when they
Okay,
build the
so
deck?
that is a great question. He's asking about permits. These physical inspection reports make no comment on whether work was done with permit or without permit. Us realtors, we are not supposed to pull permits. Ask the lawyers why we're not supposed to pull permits. So, if you're representing a seller, you might encourage them to pull all the permits that they can get on all the work they did, because it will make their home look better if there's permitted work. If the seller says, I didn't pull permits, then that must be disclosed. Okay, they have to say this work was done without permits, and the more specific, the better. But there is, if you're a buyer's agent, that's a question you might ask. So there's nothing in your disclosures about whether this new deck was done with permit or not. Mr. Seller, can you please comment?
Yeah, thank you.
Of
Thank you.
course. Does anybody else have any questions? So the last thing I want to say about this before we go is that the seller that you as a buyer's agent or a seller's agent have an obligation to encourage your buyers and sellers, specifically buyers, to review the entire disclosure package. Never say to a buyer, oh, all you need to read is the pest report, or all you need to read is the home inspection report. It is not up to you to tell the buyers what is important to them. Your job is to review the disclosure package, including the pest report, and then say to the buyer, you review it too. Please read it over. I know some of it will look like Greek, but do your best and bring to me your questions and tell me about what's important to you from what you've read. And then, and only then, you can say, I read them too. I observed these things that I thought were interesting that you should be thinking about, as well as what you have brought to my attention. Sometimes there'll be duplication, of course. But here's the issue, guys. And I talk about this in my disclosures class. You never want to be perceived as telling the buyer what's important and what isn't important, because it'll come back and bite you later. Mr. Buyer's agent, you sent me a report highlighting these 5 things I should be worried about. I've been in the home in 3 months, and I just found this thing that was in the paperwork that you didn't bold. You didn't highlight it for me. It's your fault that I now have a $10,000 expense. You have to pay for my new whatever. That's your worst case nightmare scenario. So you got to avoid the problem. You've got to have a process where they read and they tell you, or say, I've read it, here are my questions. What are you thinking about this? And then it's okay. And I would continue to stress with buyers that your review is supplemental, not a replacement. Because at the end of the day, even though people are spending hundreds of thousands, maybe over $1 million on a house, it's remarkable how they don't really want to do the homework. They don't really want to do the due diligence to make sure they're doing the right thing, to make sure that they know what they're buying. I work with buyers, and sometimes it's pulling teeth to get them to sit with me to go over the purchase agreement so that I can explain to them what it is they're signing. They've never bought a home before. It's, our contracts are 12, 13 pages. It's so important. And that's a fiduciary obligation. We have an obligation to look out for the best interests of our clients as if we were serving ourselves. These have been great questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, then. Thank you guys so much for spending some time talking with me about icky bugs today. And we will see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.